The ship that carried Emperor Volan to Earth was small and old. It was the only vessel they could find that still worked. The journey took 15 days. 15 days of traveling through space in a ship that rattled and groaned with every jump. Volan spent most of that time alone in his small cabin. He did not eat much. He did not sleep much. He mostly sat and thought about all the things he had done wrong. When the ship finally approached Earth, Volan came to the observation window. He had never seen the human homeworld before. He had never bothered to look. It was beautiful. Blue oceans covered most of the surface. White clouds swirled in patterns across the sky. Green and brown land masses spread between the waters. It looked alive in a way that few planets did. Small, Volan said to himself. Such a small world. And from this tiny place, they spread across the stars. His pilot, a nervous young Kren named Sen, spoke up from the control seat. "My Emperor, we are being contacted by human ships. They are asking our purpose. Tell them the truth. The Emperor of the Galactic Empire requests permission to land. He wishes to speak with Admiral Yuna." Sen sent the message. For several long minutes, there was no response. Volan wondered if they would simply destroy his ship. It would be a fitting end. Quick and simple. No more suffering. Then the answer came. "Permission granted. Follow the escort to landing coordinates." 2 human ships appeared on either side of them. They were sleek and fast, designed with a simple elegance that Kren ships lacked. Volan realized he had never really looked at human technology before. He had always assumed it was crude and primitive. He had been wrong about that too. The ship landed in a wide field outside a human city. Volan did not know the name of this city. He had never learned human geography. There had been no reason to learn about the places where tools lived. When the door opened, Volan stepped out onto human soil for the first time. The air was clean and fresh. A light wind carried the smell of growing things. Birds sang in nearby trees. It was peaceful in a way his own world had not been peaceful for months. A group of humans waited for him at the edge of the field. They wore simple clothes. No fancy uniforms. No displays of power. Just ordinary people standing in the sunlight. And at the front of the group stood Admiral Yuna. She looked exactly as she had in the council hall. Gray hair, lined face, sharp, clear eyes. She wore a plain jacket and simple pants. No medals, no marks of rank. Just a woman who had earned her position through decades of work. Volan walked toward her. His legs felt weak. His heart beat fast in his chest. He had faced armies and survived. He had made decisions that affected billions of lives. But this short walk was the hardest thing he had ever done. He stopped a few paces from Yuna and looked at her. She looked back at him. Her face showed nothing. "Admiral Yuna," Volan said. His voice was rough. He had not spoken much during the long journey. "Emperor Volan," she replied. Her voice was calm and steady, just like before. For a moment, neither of them moved. The wind blew between them. The birds continued to sing. Somewhere in the distance, a child laughed. Then Volan did something that no Kren Emperor had ever done before. He lowered himself to his knees. His silver fur touched the green grass of Earth. His head bowed until he was looking at the ground. "I was wrong," he said. The words hung in the air. Simple words. True words. Words that had taken the death of millions to learn. "I was wrong about you. I was wrong about your people. I was wrong about everything." He raised his head to look at her. "I called you animals. I called you tools. I laughed at your request for dignity. And because of my foolish pride, my empire is dying." Yuna said nothing. Her face remained still as stone. "I am not here to demand anything," Volan continued. "I have no power to demand. I am here to ask. To beg, if that is what you need. He swallowed hard. The next words were almost impossible to say. Please, help us. Please save my people. I will give you whatever you want. Whatever you ask. Just, please. Silence followed his words. The humans around Yuna shifted slightly, but no one spoke. They were waiting for their admiral to decide. Yuna looked at the kneeling emperor for a long time. She thought about the council hall. She thought about all the years of insults and mistreatment. She thought about human workers who had died in accidents because their lives did not matter enough to protect. She thought about human children who grew up being told they were less than others. Part of her wanted to refuse. Part of her wanted to let the empire burn. They had earned their fate. Every death was a consequence of their own actions. But another part of her looked at this broken ruler kneeling in the grass and saw something she had waited her whole life to see. Change. Real change. Stand up, she said finally. Volan rose slowly. His legs shook. Look at me. He met her eyes. His black eyes. Her brown eyes. Two species, separated by centuries of misunderstanding, brought together by tragedy. I have conditions, Yuna said. Name them. First, the original treaty must be signed. Full rights for all humans. Voting power in the council. Recognition of our colony worlds. All of it. Done. Second, reparations. Payment to every human family that lost someone due to unfair treatment or unsafe conditions. The amount to be determined by a joint commission. Volan nodded. Done. Third, a public apology. Not from your advisors. Not from your ministers. From you, personally. Broadcast to every world in the galaxy. You will tell them exactly what you told me. That you were wrong. That humans deserve respect. That this must never happen again. This was the hardest condition. For an emperor to publicly admit failure was unheard of. It went against every tradition of his people. Done, Volan said. Yuna studied his face. She was looking for signs of dishonesty. Signs that this was just a trick to get human workers back. With plans to return to the old ways once the crisis passed, she saw only defeat. And beneath the defeat, something that might have been genuine understanding. There is one more thing, she said. What? I want you to walk with me. Volan blinked in surprise. Walk with you? Through this city. I want you to see how we live. I want you to meet our people. Not as an emperor. Not as a ruler. Just as a visitor. Can you do that? It was a strange request. But Volan had come too far to refuse anything now. Yes, he said. I can do that. They walked together through the streets of the human city. Yuna led the way. Volan followed beside her. The other humans kept their distance, giving them space. They passed schools where human children were learning. Hospitals where human doctors were healing. Parks where human families were playing. Everywhere Volan looked, he saw life. Simple, ordinary, beautiful life. We built all of this, Yuna said as they walked. On this one small world. With no help from anyone. When your people found us, we were already building starships. We were already dreaming of the stars. She stopped in front of a memorial wall. Names were carved into the stone. Thousands of names. These are the humans who died serving the Empire, she said. Soldiers, engineers, doctors, workers. They gave their lives believing that someday we would be accepted. That their sacrifice would mean something. Volan looked at the names. He could not read human writing, but he understood what this wall meant. I did not know, he said softly. No, Yuna agreed. You did not. Because you never looked. They continued walking until they reached a high hill at the edge of the city. From here, they could see the whole valley spread out below. Fields and forests and rivers. Homes and buildings and roads. The work of thousands of years. This is what we are, Una said. Not tools. Not animals. People. With hopes and dreams and loves and fears. Just like you. Just like everyone in the galaxy. Volan stood beside her, looking out at the world he had never bothered to see. I understand now, he said. I truly understand. Una turned to face him one last time. Her expression had softened slightly. Not forgiveness. Not quite. But something close to acceptance. Go back to your people, she said. Sign the treaty. Make your apology. Treat us as equals from this day forward. Do these things, and we will help you rebuild. Not because we have to. Not because you deserve it. But because it is the right thing to do. She held out her hand. The human gesture of agreement. Of trust. Volan looked at her hand. Such a small thing. Such a simple gesture. Yet it represented everything he had failed to offer for 200 years. He took her hand in his own. Thank you, he said. Una nodded. Welcome to Earth, Emperor Volan. Welcome to the beginning of a new galaxy. And in that moment, standing on a hill on a small blue world, two civilizations finally met as equals. The old ways were gone. The future was waiting to be built. Together. The palace of Emperor Volan had stood for 800 years. It was built on the highest mountain of the Kren homeworld. Its towers touched the clouds. Its walls were made of stone that had taken a century to carve. Generations of emperors had ruled from this place. Now the palace was cold and dark. The emergency generators had finally failed 3 days ago. Without power, the heating system stopped working. Without heating, the temperature inside dropped to dangerous levels. The emperor of the known galaxy was wrapped in blankets, sitting in the dark, like some beggar on a frozen street. Bring more fuel for the fires, Volan ordered. His servant, a young Kren named Brel, bowed apologetically. There is no more fuel, my emperor. We burned the last of the furniture yesterday. Volan looked around the great throne room. Once it had been filled with beautiful objects. Art from 1,000 worlds. Gifts from grateful subjects. All of it was ash now, burned to keep the emperor warm for one more night. Then burn the tapestries, Volan said. We burned those last week, my emperor. Volan said nothing. What was there to say? He had ruled the galaxy for 200 years. He had commanded fleets of warships. He had decided the fate of entire planets with a wave of his hand. Now he could not even stay warm. The doors to the throne room opened, and Advisor Malin entered slowly. The old Kren looked even older now. The past months had worn him down like water wearing down a stone. News? Volan asked. Malin nodded. The human fleet has moved. Volan sat up straighter. Fear flickered in his black eyes. For months, the human ships had stayed at the border between their space and Empire space. They had not attacked. They had not threatened. They had just watched. Where are they going? They have positioned themselves around the Korn sector, Malin said. Specifically, around the planet Kel. Kel. Volan knew that name. Kel was where the Empire kept its strategic reserves. Food, medicine, fuel. Everything needed to survive a crisis. It was the most protected place in the Empire, or it had been. They are going to attack, Malin said. They are finally going to attack. Malin shook his head slowly. No, my emperor. That is the strange part. They are not attacking. They are simply there. Our scouts report they have taken no hostile action. Then what are they doing? Waiting. It seems, just like they have been waiting all along. Volan stood up from his throne. The blankets fell from his shoulders. He walked to the great window that overlooked the capital city. Even in the dim light, he could see the damage. Buildings dark and empty. Streets filled with debris. Smoke rising from fires that no one could control. His empire was dying. And the humans were not even fighting them. They were just standing back and watching it happen. Why? Volan whispered. Why are they doing this? Malin came to stand beside him. For a long moment, both of them looked out at the ruined city. Do you remember what you said to Admiral Yuna in the council hall? Malin asked quietly. Volan closed his eyes. Yes, he remembered. He remembered every word. I called them primitive, he said. I called them animals. I told them they were not our equals. And she left without saying another word. I thought she was being dramatic. I thought they would come back in a few days, after they had calmed down. They always came back before. Malin turned to face his emperor directly. It was a bold move. In the old days, looking directly at the emperor could mean death. But the old days were gone. They did not leave because they were angry, Malin said. They left because they finally gave up hoping we would change. For 100 years, they waited for us to see them as equals. For 100 years, we refused. Your speech in the council hall was the final proof they needed. Proof of what? Proof that we would never accept them. No matter how hard they worked. No matter how much they gave us. In our eyes, they would always be lesser beings. And once they understood that completely, they stopped trying. Volan turned back to the window. Below, a group of citizens was fighting over something. Even from this height, he could hear their screams. What do they want? He asked. The humans. What will make them come back? Malin was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his robe and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was old and worn, like it had been handled many times. Do you know what this is? He asked. Volan shook his head. This is a copy of the peace treaty the humans offered us. The one Admiral Yuna presented in the council hall. The one you threw back in her face. He unfolded the paper and began to read. Article 1. Humans shall be recognized as full members of the Galactic Empire, with all rights and responsibilities thereof. Article 2. Human colony worlds shall be granted the same legal status as other member worlds. Article 3. Humans shall have the right to vote in all council matters. Article 4. Past injustices against human citizens shall be investigated and, where appropriate, compensated. Malin lowered the paper. That is all they wanted, my emperor. Not power. Not revenge. Not territory. They wanted to be treated fairly. They wanted to belong. Volan stared at the paper in Malin's hands. Such simple requests. Such reasonable demands. Any wise ruler would have agreed immediately. Any wise ruler would have been grateful to have such loyal, skilled people asking for so little. He had laughed at them. I was a fool. Volan said quietly. It was the first time in 200 years that anyone had heard him admit he was wrong. Yes, Malin agreed. You were. In the distance, another section of the city went dark. The power grid was still failing. Piece by piece. Soon there would be nothing left. Contact the humans, Volan said suddenly. Send a message to Admiral Yuna. Tell her how I want to talk. Malin bowed. I will try, my emperor. But our communication systems are damaged. It may take time. Then fix them. We cannot fix them. We do not know how. The systems were built by humans. Volan finished the sentence. Of course. Even this simple task was beyond them now. There is another way, Malin said carefully. You could go to them. Go to them? You mean leave my world? Travel to human space? Yes. As what? A beggar? A prisoner? Malin met his emperor's eyes. As a ruler who finally understands his mistakes. As a leader willing to do whatever is necessary to save his people. Volan was silent for a long time. The wind howled outside the palace walls. The cold crept in through every crack and hole. His breath made small clouds in the air. Pride told him to refuse. Pride told him that emperors did not beg. Pride told him to stand firm and die with dignity. But pride had brought him here. Pride had destroyed his empire. Pride had killed millions of his people. Maybe it was time to let pride go. Prepare a ship, Volan said finally. The smallest one that can make the journey. I will go to Earth myself. Malin bowed deeply. A wise decision, my emperor. Not wise, Volan said. Desperate. There is a difference. He turned back to the window one last time. Somewhere out there, beyond the dying city and the failing empire, humans were waiting. Humans who had built everything he had taken for granted. Humans who had asked only to be treated with respect. He had called them animals. He had called them tools. He had laughed at their dreams of equality. Now he would kneel before them and beg for their help. The greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. Brought to its knees, not by war or invasion, but by the simple act of good people walking away. As Volan prepared to leave his palace. Perhaps for the last time, he finally understood the truth that had been in front of him all along. Power was not something you took. It was something you earned. And he had never earned the loyalty of the humans. He had only demanded it. And now he would pay the price. 3 cycles had passed since the humans left. In galactic time, a cycle was roughly equal to 40 Earth days. For most of the galaxy's history, that was nothing. A brief moment. A blink of the cosmic eye. Now it felt like forever. Director Kassan of the Varix Trade Authority stood in what used to be the most beautiful office in the galaxy. The walls had been made of living crystal that glowed with inner light. The floor had shown real-time images of trade ships moving between stars. The ceiling had displayed the current value of every major currency in the Empire. Now the walls were dark. The floor showed nothing but black glass. The ceiling had stopped working weeks ago. Kassan worked by the light of chemical torches, like some primitive being from ancient times. Give me good news, he said to his assistant. Please, anything. His assistant, a nervous creature named Vel, shuffled through papers. Real papers. The computer systems had failed, so they had gone back to writing things down by hand. The food shipments from the Harn farms are delayed, Vel said. The transport ships cannot navigate without the positioning systems. Human positioning systems. What else? The water purification on levels 50 through 90 has stopped. Our engineers tried to fix it, but Vel trailed off. Kassan knew what that meant. Their engineers had tried and failed. Again. Just like every other time. They had tried to replace human technology with their own. How many dead? Kassan asked quietly. 12,000 this week. Mostly from illness. The medical stations cannot produce the vaccines they need. Kassan sat down heavily in his chair. The chair had once adjusted automatically to his body. Now it just sat there like a dead thing. He remembered the humans who used to work in this building. Quiet people. Polite people. They had fixed things that broke and built things that were needed. They had never complained. They had never demanded special treatment. He had never bothered to learn their names. Far away. On the mining world of Keth, a different kind of disaster was unfolding. Keth was famous for its deep mines. These mines produced rare metals that the whole galaxy needed. The mines went down many kilometers into the planet's crust. The mines were also incredibly dangerous. Without the safety systems, workers died every day. Mine. Administrator Drex watched as another body was carried out of the main shaft. This one was a young female from his own species. She had been crushed when a tunnel collapsed. The tunnel had collapsed because the support beams had failed. The support beams had failed because no one knew how to maintain them. This is the 3rd collapse today, said his chief engineer. A tired old male named Boric. We need to close the mines. Close the mines? Drex shouted. Do you know what happens if we close the mines? The whole economy falls apart. We are the only source of trilithium in this sector. We are also killing our workers, Boric replied calmly. Soon we will have no one left to dig. Drex had no answer to that. The truth was, humans had designed every safety system in these mines. They had calculated exactly how much weight each tunnel could hold. They had built sensors that could detect problems before they happened. They had created escape routes and emergency shelters. All of that knowledge had left with them. On the Kren military station called Iron Fist, Admiral Gran faced his own crisis. Iron Fist was the largest military base in the Empire. It housed 50,000 soldiers and 100 warships. It was supposed to be unbreakable. Now it was falling apart. The shield generators are at 30%, reported his tactical officer. If they fail completely, we will be exposed to radiation from the nearby star. Can we move to a safer position? Gran asked. The navigation systems are not reliable. 2 ships tried to leave yesterday. One is lost. We do not know where it went. The officer paused. The other flew into an asteroid field. Survivors? None. Gran slammed his fist against the console in front of him. The console sparked and went dark. Get it fixed, he shouted. His engineers rushed forward to look at the damage. They opened panels and studied the wires inside. They talked to each other in confused whispers. After several minutes, the lead engineer turned to face the admiral. We do not know how this works, sir. What do you mean you do not know? You are engineers. We are Kren engineers, sir. This console was built by humans. We have no training on human systems. Gran looked around the bridge of his station. Suddenly he saw it with new eyes. The chairs, designed by humans. The screens, built by humans. The life support systems, the weapons controls, the communications array. All of it. Every piece of technology that kept them alive. Humans had built this station. Humans had maintained this station. And now humans were gone. Contact the Emperor, Gran said quietly. Tell him we need help. But the Emperor had his own problems. On the Kren homeworld, the situation was even worse. This was the heart of the Empire, the most advanced planet in the galaxy. And it was dying. The great cities had lost power. The transport systems had stopped. The factories had fallen silent. Citizens who had never known hardship suddenly found themselves without basic necessities. In the capital city, riots had broken out. People fought over food. They fought over water. They fought over simple things like blankets and medicine. Emperor Volan watched the chaos from his palace windows. The palace still had power, run by emergency generators. But even those would not last forever. How did this happen? He asked the Darkness. His chief advisor, an ancient Kren named Malin, stood beside him. We became dependent, my emperor. Over many generations, we handed more and more work to the humans. They were so good at it. So efficient. We never thought about what would happen if they left. They were supposed to be grateful, Volan said. We let them live among us. We gave them purpose. They should have been honored to serve. Malin was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke carefully. My emperor, may I speak freely? Speak. The humans never wanted to serve. They wanted to belong. There is a difference. Malin looked out at the burning city below. We could have made them partners. We could have shared power with them. Instead, we treated them like tools. And now the tools have put themselves away. Volan turned to face his advisor. His black eyes showed something they rarely showed. Doubt. Can we survive without them? Malin did not answer. They both already knew. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out again and again. Planets going dark. Stations falling silent. Ships lost in the void between stars. The great civilization that had ruled for thousands of years was crumbling. And the humans? The humans sat on their worlds and watched. They did not celebrate. They did not mock. They simply waited. On Earth, Admiral Una received regular reports about the collapse. Each report was harder to read than the last. So much suffering. So much death. Part of her wanted to help. Part of her wanted to send ships and engineers and doctors to fix what was breaking, but she did not. They need to understand, she told Commander Do-hyun. They need to truly understand what they have done. Not just feel sorry because things are hard. They need to see us as people. Real people. Equal people. And if they never do? Do-hyun asked. Una looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were learning the hardest lesson of their lives. The lesson that power was not the same as strength. That ruling was not the same as deserving to rule. Then we will build our own civilization, she said. Without them. We did it once on this small planet. We can do it again among the stars. She turned away from the window. There was work to do. Plans to make. A future to build. The galaxy was falling. And humanity was rising. The message reached every human in the galaxy at exactly the same moment. It came through personal communicators, ship radios, and station speakers. It came in text and voice. It was simple and clear. Come home. Leave everything. Come home now. Jisoo was working on the engine of a Kren battleship when her communicator beeped. She read the message twice, then put down her tools and walked away. The Kren officer shouted at her to come back. She did not even look at him. Across the galaxy, millions of humans did the same thing. Engineers left their stations half-finished. Doctors walked out of hospitals. Teachers put down their books and headed for the nearest transport. Scientists locked their labs and deleted their research files. Soldiers put down their weapons and removed their uniforms. Nobody asked questions. Nobody hesitated. They simply left. Commander Do-hyun stood on the bridge of the human carrier ship Dawn of Earth. Through the massive windows, he could see dozens of smaller ships approaching. Every few minutes, another transport would dock and deliver more humans heading home. How many so far? He asked his second officer, a young woman named Minji. 40,000 from this sector alone, she reported. All the major stations are reporting the same thing. Complete withdrawal. Dawn nodded. He had helped plan this operation for years. They called it Protocol Sunset. Every human in the galaxy had known about it, had trained for it. They had hoped they would never need to use it. The Emperor had made sure they did. In the great trade city of Varex, panic was beginning to spread. This city had the largest market in the known galaxy. Millions of beings from hundreds of species came here to buy and sell. The whole system depended on the power plants that humans had built and maintained. Now those humans were gone. Station Master Bellin of the Varex Trade Authority called an emergency meeting. He was a tall, thin being with yellow skin and 4 arms. Right now, all 4 arms were waving in distress. They cannot just leave. He shouted at his advisors. We have contracts. Agreements. They are bound by law. One of his advisors, a quiet being named Tosk, cleared his throat. Sir, I have reviewed our records. The human contracts. They all ended yesterday. What? Every single contract. They were all set to expire on the same day. We never noticed because we always just renewed them automatically. Bellin stared at him in disbelief. Are you telling me they planned this? Tosk could only nod. The lights in the room flickered. Somewhere deep in the station, a warning alarm began to sound. The first systems were starting to fail. Across the galaxy, other species were making the same discovery. Humans had not just been workers. They had been the foundation, the hidden support that held everything together. The Kren military lost contact with half their fleet. Human technicians had maintained the communication systems. Without them, ships could not talk to each other or receive orders from command. The medical centers on 12 major worlds ran out of critical medicines. Human scientists had developed the formulas. Human factories had made the drugs. The secrets had gone with them when they left. The great shipyards of the Narration system fell silent. Human engineers had designed the construction robots. Without their codes, the robots simply stopped working. Admiral Una sat in her office on Earth and watched the reports come in. Every few minutes, another message would arrive. Another station going dark. Another system failing. Another planet begging for help. Captain Hana stood beside her, reading from a screen in her hands. The Belix Mining Federation has offered to double their payment if we return their workers, she said. The Oran Science Council says they will give us full voting rights if we send back our researchers. The Varix Trade Authority. She paused and almost smiled. They are offering us an entire moon. Una said nothing for a long moment. She was looking at a picture on her wall. It showed a young human soldier standing beside an alien officer. The soldier was smiling. The alien was not. I was 18 years old when I joined the fleet, Una said quietly. My first assignment was cleaning waste systems on a Kren transport ship. The officer in charge used to call me his little pet human. He thought it was funny. Hana listened in silence. 50 years, Una continued. 50 years we have served them. We have built their cities and healed their sick. We have died in their wars. And they still look at us like animals. She finally turned to face Hana. Her eyes were sad, but her voice was firm. We will not go back. Not for moons. Not for voting rights. Not for anything they can offer. They had their chance to treat us fairly. They chose to laugh instead. The message went out to all human ships. Maintain position. Wait. 1 week passed. The power grid on the planet Kos collapsed completely. Millions of beings were left in darkness. Their government had relied entirely on human-designed fusion plants. Without humans to maintain them, the plants had failed one by one. Emergency crews from other species tried to fix the damage. They studied the human designs. They analyzed the human technology. They understood almost nothing. The humans had made it look simple, but beneath that simplicity were layers of complexity that no one else could follow. On the Kren homeworld, Emperor Volan received daily reports about the growing crisis. His advisors tried to put a positive spin on the news. The situation was difficult, they said, but manageable. Other species would fill the gap left by the humans. But the reports kept getting worse. Commander Doyun received an interesting message on the 10th day. A group of alien engineers had tried to restart a human-built reactor. They had ignored the warning signs they did not understand. The explosion had destroyed an entire section of station. Sad, Doyun said, but expected. His assistant, a young man named Junho, looked troubled. Sir, there were people on that station. Not just Kren, other species too. They did nothing wrong to us. Dohyun turned to face him. His expression was serious. Every death weighs on my heart, he said. I do not celebrate this suffering. But tell me, Junho, what was our choice? Should we continue to serve those who treat us like slaves? Should we accept their insults and bow our heads forever? Junho had no answer. We are not attacking anyone, Dohyun continued. We are not burning their cities or destroying their ships. We are simply leaving. If their civilization falls apart because we are gone, then perhaps they should have valued us more. Across the galaxy, other species were starting to realize the same thing. The humans had never been a threat. They had never demanded power or territory. They had simply worked, day after day, year after year, building and fixing and healing. And now they were gone. And nothing worked anymore. On the human homeworld of Earth, children played in parks while their parents watched the stars. They were safe. They were together. Whatever happened next, they would face it as a united people. Admiral Una walked through one of these parks on the 15th day. She stopped to watch a group of children playing a game she remembered from her own childhood. Simple joy on their faces. No fear. No shame. A young girl ran up to her and offered her a flower. A simple white flower from Earth's soil. "Thank you," Una said, taking the flower gently. She looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, billions of aliens were learning a hard lesson. They had called humans primitive. They had called humans weak. They had laughed at the idea of treating humans as equals. They were not laughing now. Una touched the flower to her lips and smiled. The silence would continue until the galaxy was ready to listen. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest room Admiral Una had ever seen. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Light came from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The floor was made of some kind of crystal that showed stars moving beneath her feet. Una walked slowly toward the center of the room. Her boots made soft sounds on the crystal floor. Behind her walked 3 other humans. Commander Do-hyun was on her left. Captain Hannah was on her right. And young Lieutenant Teeman carried the documents they had prepared for this moment. Around them sat thousands of aliens. They filled seats that rose up like mountains on all sides. Some of these beings were tall and thin with blue skin. Others were short and wide with scales. Some had no bodies at all and floated like colored smoke. Every species in the known galaxy had sent someone to watch this meeting. At the far end of the hall sat Emperor Volan on his golden throne. He was from the Kren species. His body was covered in silver fur. His eyes were completely black and showed no feeling. He had ruled the Galactic Empire for over 200 years. In all that time, no one had ever challenged his word. Una stopped at the speaking platform. It was a small circle of light in the middle of all that darkness. She stood straight and tall. She was not a young woman anymore. Her hair had turned gray at the edges. Lines marked her face from years of worry and hard work. But her eyes were sharp and clear. "Admiral Una of Earth," said a voice that came from the walls themselves. "You may speak." Una took a deep breath. She had practiced this speech 100 times. Her people were counting on her. 3 billion humans spread across 12 colony worlds. They had worked for 50 years to reach this moment. "Emperor Volan," she began. Her voice was calm and steady. "Leaders of the Galactic Council, thank you for allowing us to speak today." She looked around the room at all the alien faces watching her. "Humans have been part of your galaxy for 120 years. In that time, we have worked hard to prove our worth. Our engineers have built stations that orbit your worlds. Our doctors have cured diseases that killed millions. Our scientists have made your ships faster and your weapons stronger." Do-hyun handed her a small device. Una pressed a button, and images appeared in the air above her head. Pictures of human workers building great structures. Pictures of human ships carrying medicine to dying planets. Pictures of human teachers sharing knowledge with alien children. "We have asked for nothing in return except respect," Una continued. "We have followed every law. We have paid every tax. We have served in your military and died in your wars." The images changed to show human soldiers standing beside aliens in battle. Many of those soldiers never came home. "Today, we come to you with a simple request. We ask for the same rights as other member species. The right to vote in this council. The right to own land on our colony worlds. The right to be treated as equals. She let those words hang in the air for a moment. We offer a peace treaty, a promise of continued friendship and cooperation. All we ask in return is dignity. Lieutenant Taman stepped forward and placed the documents on a small table. These papers represented years of careful work. Every word had been chosen with care. Every term was fair and reasonable. Yuna bowed her head slightly and waited for the Emperor to respond. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then Emperor Volan began to laugh. It was not a kind laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had just heard the funniest joke in the universe. The sound echoed through the great hall. Some of the other aliens began to laugh too, though many looked uncomfortable. Dignity? The Emperor said when he finally stopped laughing. You speak to me of dignity? He stood up from his throne and walked down the steps toward the speaking platform. His silver fur seemed to glow in the strange light. His black eyes fixed on Yuna like two holes in space. Let me tell you something about humans, he said to the crowd. I remember when we first found them. They were living on one small planet, fighting wars with each other over patches of dirt. They had barely learned to leave their own atmosphere. He circled around Yuna like a hunter looking at trapped prey. We gave them everything. We taught them how to travel between stars. We let them live on worlds they could never have found alone. And now they come here, to my hall, and demand to be treated as our equals? He stopped directly in front of Yuna. He was much taller than her. He looked down at her with something like pity mixed with disgust. You are not our equals, he said. His voice was soft, but everyone in the hall could hear every word. You are not even close to being our equals. You are useful, yes. Like tools are useful. Like animals are useful. Yuna's face showed nothing. Her hands stayed still at her sides. But Dayan could see a small muscle tightening in her jaw. Your request is denied, the Emperor continued. Not because it is too much to ask, but because you are too little to ask it. Go back to your work, humans. Build our stations. Fix our machines. Be grateful that we allow you to exist in our shadow. He turned away from her and walked back toward his throne. This meeting is over. The crowd began to murmur. Some aliens nodded in agreement with the Emperor. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few looked at the humans with something like sympathy. Yuna stood perfectly still for several seconds. Then she did something no one expected. She bent down and picked up the documents from the table. She folded them carefully and put them inside her uniform jacket. Then she bowed. It was a deep bow, the kind given to show great respect. But there was something strange about it. Something final. Thank you for your time, Emperor Volan, she said. Her voice was still calm. Still steady. Your words have made everything very clear. She turned and began walking toward the exit. Dohin, Hannah, and Taman followed her without a word. Where are you going? The Emperor called after her. There was something in his voice now. Not worry exactly, but curiosity. We are not finished here. Yuna stopped but did not turn around. Yes, we are, she said simply. Then she continued walking. Her boots made soft sounds on the crystal floor. The great doors opened before her. And then she was gone. The hall exploded with noise. Everyone was talking at once. What did this mean? What were the humans planning? Some laughed and said it was just wounded pride. Others were not so sure that Emperor Volan sat back on his throne and watched the empty doorway. For just a moment, something flickered in his black eyes. But then it was gone, and he waved his hand dismissively. Humans, he said with a slight smile. Always so emotional. He had no idea that he had just made the biggest mistake of his 200-year reign.